Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. In today's video, we're going to be covering the new scouting system within MLB The Show 23 and pretty much everything you need to know about how this new system operates and how it's going to impact you in franchise mode. I want to start by saying that it's really just a UI change, a user interface change for the most part. There is some added depth and a little bit more going on with scouting this year, so it's not a complete UI change, but it is mostly a UI change and just relocating where some of the different details are within the scouting mode this year. You can see right off the bat by just clicking into the scouting system, we're getting a new interface, items that we didn't get in the past, 3 weekly objectives. Realistically, when it comes down to it, I just want to quickly say at the start of the video that it's very easy to operate scouting in the same way that you did last year and just end up with a good draft class with all high potential players that have no issues with them. I know some people have been saying that they've been finding potential busts, or they've been finding players that have injury history or they're injury prone, but that's not the case. I'm going to go through all 6 of my draft prospects in the Pittsburgh Pirates franchise, and then we're going to also start up our own franchise to test some things out and show you in today's video. Our first round pick was Monty Maynard here, who is a 72 overall with high B potential, and he comes in without any injury history, injury issues, high durability, no problem there. But we also came out with a lot of outfield prospects because that's what we were trying to do for the Pirates. So we got a guy in Eldon Hill here who again has really high durability and just has the home body quirk. He doesn't have any injury history issues, and you'll see that with pretty much every single player. He's a high B potential, and we also got a potential player in the outfield that's a 50 overall. Again, low durability, so that might be just a product of his low overall. That could be an injury related thing, but he doesn't have anything specific that is saying that he's an injury prone player, so keep that in mind. We are also able to get a left fielder that had a potential 50 overall. He is 23 years old, so a little bit older, but again, no durability issues, first pitch hitter, that's the only trait that he has. We were able to get a first baseman in Lucas Venner that is a high B potential player that also has no issues of any kind, a decent durability player, and we also got a closing pitcher that is a 54 high B potential player, no issues on his end as well, and a starting pitcher that has B potential in Mitch Estrella. It's 22 years old, 62 overall B potential, and again, like I said, no issues with this player as well. So we were able to get an entire draft class picking a B or better potential player in every single round. And that was my second time going through. I had much the same results the first time through. So let's go ahead and start our own franchise and talk about that a little bit. We'll talk through step by step what you need to know about scouting and how you can come away with good draft classes like this, where you're going to end up with really good potential players. So the first bit of information that you're going to need to know about scouting in MLB The Show 23 is that it is now not a constantly available thing for you to utilize within franchise mode. You're only going to be able to do it from the beginning of the season until the draft, and you can only set your scouting assignments and see the prospects within the game on Sundays. So you can see I just started this franchise. We are just starting in the regular season and scouting is locked for me. What I have to do is I have to advance to the first Sunday of the month, the first Sunday of the season, to have any access to my scouting system. You're going to get the option to then access your scouting. Once you move on from that day, for the remainder of the week, you will not have access to the scouting system. That may be shown a little bit here in the rest of the video, but basically you're going to get 14 days, 14 Sundays to be able to set your scouting and review what has been accomplished so far. When you actually enter the scouting system, you're going to be able to set your weekly assignments. You're not going to be able to press circle to exit out of this scouting system, so you have to set at least some type of assignment, setting gold, silver, and then bronze. And once you've set a scouting priority for all 3 of these slots, you can then click advance and finalize your weekly scouting plan. Keep in mind, you can also skip and set to auto, but setting it does not lock it in. You can always then, on the same day, on Sunday, go back into your scouting assignment and edit it. You can remove those assignments, cancel those assignments, edit those assignments, whatever you want to do, you can still do that, but you can't get out of this screen until you have set those assignments. At the top of the screen, you're going to be able to see the R1, L1 buttons there. There's two tabs. You can go over to positional needs, and this is going to affect you in an interesting way. So this year you have a player interest mechanic that works a little bit differently than prior year scouting. So this is the new mechanic pretty much that was added in addition to the way scouting already worked, and then they changed the interface. You're going to be able to increase player interest for players through this positional needs tab. You can increase player interest for players who match your selected positional needs at a faster rate, and that's what's going on here. And what this really affects is signing those players after the draft. So keep in mind that player interest has nothing to do with whether they get drafted to your team or not. More so, it's whether they'll sign with your team after you've officially drafted them. So you have to reach a certain threshold of player interest to get that player to sign with you. We found that somewhere above 60 is where you start to get into players that will consistently sign with your team, but if you get to about 70%, you're going to pretty much sign that player every time. There are a lot of players that you could draft that have much lower interest, and it could take a lot of effort to try to get that player to sign. There's actually a 21-day period after the draft where you're going to be able to focus on specific players and try to increase their interest so that they will sign after the draft. And then let's go ahead and actually dive into the different priorities that you have with your scouts. You're going to have 3 scouts on your team. You can hire and fire 3 scouts, and their different ratings are going to impact what they can do. They're going to have pitchers, position players, discovery, and efficiency. And this is where we start to talk about things being pretty much exactly the same as they were last year. The pitcher's rating effectively decides how well they can scout pitchers. Position players, same thing for them, how well they can scout position players. Discovery is how many new prospects they're going to be able to discover in a given week. And then efficiency is how much they're able to increase that bar of scouting on a player and how efficient they are at increasing player interest. So a higher efficiency rating is going to discover more about a player, and it is going to make the player more interested over time in signing with your team. You then also have 3 options for your scouts within this scouting system, which are pretty much the same as what you could do in prior years, which is you can designate them to scout a specific prospect, you can designate them to scout a specific position, or you can designate them to discover new prospects. Scouting position and discovering new prospects are very ineffective as a whole. You're going to really just want to focus on scouting prospects because in the drafts that we have done, we focused on the various different things that you could do here with your scouts. The most effective thing turned out to be just scouting the prospects that they already give to you. They give you a ton of prospects to potentially draft from already. It's not like the prior system where you really had to focus on discovering prospects. It just doesn't operate that way. You will see numbers missing in here. So whenever we actually go to scout prospect, you can see we have 1 through 10. We actually have most of these prospects scouted. Sometimes, and this is what happened with the Pirates, for example, we knew about prospect number 1, 2, and 3, but we didn't have prospect 4, 5, 6, and 7. So you would have to try to discover those prospects if you really wanted to know about them. Anyway, you're going to want to focus on scouting specific players. And again, this information here is all pretty much the same as it has been in the past. You're going to get a potential range, an overall range, and that is primarily the information you're going to focus on in drafting players. You're also going to be able to see their age. You're also going to be able to click triangle to click on their profile and look at different information about them. You'll be able to get a doctor's report with more detailed information, which is really helpful information to know. That is additional information that they've added to scouting this year, which is really nice. However, for the most part, you can get away with drafting players that have a good potential range and a decent overall range, and you're going to come away with really good players. That's what we saw in the last video. So I'm going to focus my scouting efforts primarily on players that have a potential range of 80 to 99. There is the chance that this player will be a bust, so you're going to want to scout them. You're definitely going to want to know that information. But when you're getting later into the draft and you don't have players scouted, it's still best to kind of just pick from players that have a higher potential range because it is mostly accurate still, like it was in prior years. Again, I wanted to show you just a quick example of the fact that scouting is going to be locked for you pretty much most of the year. And this is just in the middle of the second week here. I can't access scouting because I'm not on a Sunday. You can only access it on a Sunday. So it's a big knock to the scouting program this year. And realistically, you can't really even access the scouting board whenever you want to. So let's say we sim to the next Sunday here and we select our scouting assignments. The only way for me to view the prospects that I have on my board is to edit or cancel one of these assignments. So for example, I'm scouting position, and discovering a position. I would have to cancel one of these assignments assignments and get rid of it to be able to view the prospects that we actually have on the board. So I'd have to go in here and then hit Scout Prospect, and then I can view the actual draft board. It's a really inefficient way of doing things, and I'm hoping that they'll change this in an update here coming in the near future. So we're now next to the draft. We're one day away, which is going to be July 9th. Let's go ahead and sim to the draft. Whenever you actually go to the draft, it's going to be a somewhat similar system to last year. However, you now have the option to add prospects to your draft board, which is a fantastic way to do things. So we'll just add Jackie Sanders to the queue, for example, and if you sim through the draft, what it's going to do is it's going to pick players from your queue. So that's definitely something that you're going to be interested in, especially if you don't want to spend the time making every single pick. What I'm going to do now is actually mute the game because there is some copyrighted music as you draft players within this draft, but we're going to click go to the draft and you get some nice new animations. It is a really nice kind of addition or change to the drafting system, but you basically operate the draft exactly the same way as you did in the past. You're going to have a clock now, which is fantastic, but when we hit start draft, it's going to select players. You cannot, unfortunately, skip these animations for other teams, but the Pittsburgh Pirates make their first selection. He's going to come out through the smoke, and it's going to give you the information about him. Brandon Heinlein, he's going to be their top overall pick. And we can advance, and it's going to do this probably a couple of times in a row for the first couple of picks. This might get annoying to you. It was a little bit annoying to me. It's kind of cool if you want to see who other teams are taking, but if you really just want to get to your picks, it's not going to be the most interesting thing to you guys. You're going to have to just kind of click through it. Again, you can just click draft options and sim to your pick. Now it's going to be our pick. I'm going to view the prospects that we have available and make a determination of who I want to pick. Generally speaking, this is going to be the player that has the highest potential and overall combination for you and at a position that is going to be the most effective for you guys. So a good example of a player would be maybe Darren Lockwood here. I'm going to look through some of these players and make a pick on who I think is going to be the best for the organization. You're not going to get the opportunity to sign these players right after the draft, so you're going to have to sim through a couple of days in order to be able to sign those players. You'll get a pop-up. We're now 2 days later from the draft and we can sign our draft picks. This is what that new player interest system is going to look like. You're going to get 3 slots to be able to sign these players, and keep in mind the amount of money that you pay these players comes from your bonus allotment in the top left corner. So you do have to kind of decide between your 6 players what is the highest priority. You're usually going to be able to sign all of these players, but if you have a really low player interest, you might have to give them a ton of bonus to get them to sign, which might prevent you from signing someone else. We're going to start with Darren Lockwood, who I'm going to just simply offer a contract to because he has 75% interest. We're probably not going to have to do a whole lot to get him to sign. So he decided to decline our offer. What I'm going to do is just leave him in this slot. When a player does sign, this is what the screen is going to look like. Lou Urban has decided to sign with the Athletics, and you're then going to be able to use that same slot to try to sign other players. So for this example, I'm going to be able to keep trying to sign these players for, you know, our team through our draft if we continue to be able to sign them. So that allows me to then move on to the next player. So you could theoretically sign every single player in the first week. Don't think that you just have to do 3 at once and wait on the others. That's not necessarily the case. Focus on the players that are most interested first. If they decide not to sign, they will take up a slot here, and try to get as many out of the way early as possible. And there you have it. I've been able to sign every player except for these first 2 that declined my offers. When we advance to the next 3 days, so it's going to be a 3-day period, these players' interest will go up by the amount that you see up at the top of each priority. You can rearrange the priority of these players if you really want to, switch them around, but nonetheless, that's exactly how this is going to operate. Let's go ahead and sign our last couple of draft picks and take a look at what results afterwards. And there you have it. Darren Lockwood has decided to sign with the Athletics, and we're going to be able to exit out of here since we have nothing else left to do, and we can't really do anything at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and sim through the end of this 21-day period, and we'll then take a look at what information we get about these players at that point. And just so you guys know, the actual deadline to sign these prospects is August 1st, as we can see at the top of the screen here. So we are now on August 1st. Let's sim through that date, and we'll be able to view our draft picks at this point. So at this point, you're then going to get the information from these players. You can see their scouted potential versus their actual potential, and you'll be able to see that these things do line up pretty well. So Richie Sams is a 66 overall A potential, Darren Lockwood a 74 overall A potential, Freddie Gonzalez Gonzalez, a 62 A potential. Lou Urban, a 64 A potential. Darryl McLean surprisingly dropped below his potential, but this isn't a guy that we had scouted at all, so he's a 42C. We then got Kenny Sposato, who is a 57B, and a 45B with our final pick in the draft. That's a really good haul, if you ask me, and as far as I can see, there's really nothing wrong with any of these players. We'll be able to see once these players are added to our roster at the end of the season, but that's all that's left to be done. There's nothing else to do scouting-wise. When you hit the end of the season, you'll get all of the information about these players because they'll officially sign with your teams, and that's literally everything you need to know about the scouting system in MLB The Show 23. It's really not hard. The scouting system is relatively straightforward this year. Start on scouting players that have a high potential, and you're going to do well. As I said, that's pretty much everything you need to know about the scouting system this year. Hopefully this was helpful to you in some way, and if it was, subscribe to the channel, comment down below, and leave a like. As always, I'll see you in the next video, and I hope you guys have a good one.